right now, like, almost half of the counties in the United States do not even have a drugstore within 10 miles. I mean, the physical pharmacy, like the brightly lit corner store where we've literally all gone to pick up a prescription, it's just vanishing.
Yeah, it really is. The biggest chains are shuttering thousands of locations. And honestly, if you just look at those boarded up windows, the story seems incredibly obvious, right?
Right, you'd think the entire pharmacy profession is just in this terminal decline. But then you actually look at the federal labor data and you see that the demand for pharmacists is projected to grow faster than the national average.
It is a massive contradiction. And well, solving that contradiction is exactly why we are here today.
Welcome back to the deep dive. We built this space for you, our listener, the ultimate learner who wants to get past those doom and gloom headlines and really understand the actual underlying mechanics of the modern workforce.
Exactly.
And today, our mission takes a magnifying glass to a very specific, high-stakes question, which is it actually worth going to pharmacy school anymore in 2026?
It's a question a lot of prospective students and, frankly, career switchers are asking right now. And the stack of sources you brought us to answer it paints a truly fascinating picture of an industry in total transition.
Yeah, we are pulling from some fantastic material you provided. We have this fresh demographic research from the University of Washington Center for Health Workforce Studies. That's from August 2024.
Right.
We are also looking at the latest Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS outlooks. We've got industry analysis on the life science sector from McKinsey. And to anchor all of this in our current reality, we are looking at some very recent 2026 salary and workforce reports from Becker's Hospital Review.
It is an excellent combination of data, honestly, because it forces us to look past the superficial narrative. I mean, on the surface, if you only look at the retail sector and the university application numbers, this profession looks like it is in an absolute freefall.
Right, which brings us to the hook of today's deep dive. The data reveals this massive hidden pivot. The profession isn't actually dying, it's structurally transforming.
Yep.
And this pivot might actually make the pharmacy degree more interesting and potentially more lucrative than it has literally ever been in modern history.
Which I'll admit is incredibly counterintuitive when you first look at those raw application numbers from the University of Washington study.
Okay, let's unpack this application freefall because, wow, the drop in people even wanting to enter this field is just staggering. According to the UW data, back in the 2011 to 2012 academic year, there were nearly 100,000 applications to pharmacy schools in the U.S.
Wow.
But by the 2021 to 2022 academic year, that number had plummeted to just over 35,000.
Yeah, that is a 64% drop in just a single decade.
It's wild.
It really is. And to understand why that's happening, you have to look at the visibility of the retail sector. When most people think of a pharmacist, they think of, the person standing behind the counter at a major retail chain.
Right, the blockbuster video of healthcare, essentially.
Yeah, that's a perfect analogy, actually. And when you look at the Becker's Hospital Review data, the physical footprint of those chains is just collapsing. I mean, you had Rite Aid filing for bankruptcy in 2023 and shutting down about 800 stores.
800?
Yeah, and CVS closed 900 locations starting in 2021. And then Walgreens announced plans to close 1,200 more starting in 2024.
It fundamentally changes the landscape of American healthcare access. I mean, Becker's points out that this cumulative contraction has left 46% of U.S. counties without a drugstore within a 10-mile radius.
That's just a huge chunk of the country.
It is. And it isn't just the buildings disappearing. The jobs are evaporating right along with them. In 2025 alone, retail pharmacist employment dropped by 8,200 positions.
Right.
As of May 2025, that specific retail workforce is 14.2% smaller than its peak in 2017.
The workforce is definitely following the storefronts right out the door. And honestly, for the retail pharmacists who actually remain, the daily reality is grim. The UW study cites a systematic review showing a 51% burnout rate among pharmacists.
Over half.
Yeah, more than half the workforce is completely burned out.
And I think we need to explain why that burnout is happening rather than just throwing a percentage around, right? Because it isn't just that they're counting pills for 8 hours a day anymore.
No, not at all.
Over the last decade, and especially accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, the retail pharmacist's workload fundamentally mutated. They went from primarily dispensing medication to acting as these de facto mass vaccination clinics.
Exactly. They are suddenly responsible for hitting corporate vaccine quotas, administering flu shots, COVID boosters, and shingles vaccines, all while still managing the traditional workflow.
Which is already a lot.
It is. They're running the cash register, answering non-stop phone calls from patients, and constantly fighting with insurance companies over prior authorizations. And they are often doing this incredibly high-stakes work, where, keep in mind, a single mistake could legally verify a fatal drug interaction with absolutely minimal support staff. The work-life balance was just obliterated.
So this is where I have to step in and look at this from the perspective of our listener, you know? If I am considering this career path and you are telling me that half the workforce is clinically burned out, the major employers are shuttering thousands of locations, and applications to pharmacy school have crashed by 64%,
Right.
why on earth would I pursue this? It sounds less like a career opportunity and more like buying a ticket on a sinking ship.
And if the entire profession was just retail pharmacy, you would be absolutely right to think that.
Oh.
But the ship isn't sinking, it is entirely changing course. This is where we hit that massive contradiction in the Bureau of Labor Statistics data.
Yeah, this part is fascinating.
Despite all those high-profile store closures and the whole retail apocalypse narrative, the overall demand for pharmacists is projected to actually grow by 5% between 2020 and 2034.
And a 5% growth rate is actually faster than the average for all occupations. The BLS is projecting the addition of 15,400 new pharmacist jobs over that decade.
Exactly.
So if they aren't working behind the counter at the corner drugstore, where exactly are these 15,000 new jobs coming from?
They are moving from the cash register to the clinic. The Becker's report breaks down this shift beautifully. While the retail positions are vanishing, hospitals and health systems are on an absolute hiring spree.
Okay.
Yeah, hospitals added more than 11,000 pharmacist jobs across 2023 and 2024, and then they added another 3,000 positions in 2025 alone. They now employ over 102,000 pharmacists nationwide.
So the neighborhood pharmacist is essentially becoming a hospital pharmacist, but I think we need to clarify what that actually means on a day-to-day basis. Are they just standing behind a different counter in like a hospital basement, or does the nature of the work actually change?
The nature of the work completely evolves. This is no longer about the mechanical act of counting pills into little amber bottles. We are talking about the rise of clinical and consultant pharmacists. In a hospital setting, these pharmacists are actually going on rounds with the physicians and the broader healthcare team.
Wait, really? So they are physically walking room to room with the attending physicians during patient evaluations?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
They are directly advising the doctors in real time. Because medications have become so incredibly complex today, doctors rely heavily on clinical pharmacists to consult on the selection, the exact dosage, the potential interactions with the patient's other medications, and of course, the side effects.
That makes a lot of sense.
And outside of the hospital wards, they are running specialized clinics. Take a diabetes clinic, for example. A clinical pharmacist might earn specialized credentials to manage patients there.
So how does a pharmacist manage care in that setting compared to a traditional doctor? Like, what's the difference?
Well, a standard primary care physician might only have the bandwidth to see a diabetic patient, say, every 6 months. A clinical pharmacist in this setting will see that patient regularly, download and analyze the data from their continuous glucose monitor, and directly alter their insulin prescriptions on the fly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they'll suggest specific food choices based on real-time blood sugar trends and proactively manage the disease. They aren't just dispensing a drug a doctor ordered. They're actively diagnosing, treating, and managing the entire care plan.
That structural shift makes perfect sense. We are basically looking at a profession transitioning from the equivalent of a bank teller to a wealth advisor.
That's a great way to put it.
The bank teller handles the mechanical transaction, handing you the cash. The wealth advisor manages the complex, interconnected portfolio. And this perfectly aligns with what McKinsey is talking about in their life sciences report regarding technology.
Right. What is fascinating here is how McKinsey highlights the disruption coming from agentic AI. And we should probably define that because it's a buzzword that gets thrown around a lot right now.
Right. Agentic AI isn't just a chatbot that answers a question for you. It is an artificial intelligence system that can formulate a plan, take actions, and actually execute tasks autonomously in the real world.
Exactly. And in a pharmacy setting, agentic AI combined with robotics is getting exceptionally good at the mechanical tasks. A robotic arm integrated with AI can count pills, verify weights, scan barcodes, and bottle standard dosages much faster and with a lower error rate than a human being ever could.
So the mechanical act of dispensing is just being automated away.
But the McKinsey report emphasizes that the true value creation in modern healthcare requires combining that technological disruption with human scientific excellence.
Yeah.
I mean, the AI can put the pills in the bottle, sure, but it doesn't have the nuanced clinical judgment to look at a 75-year-old patient who is taking blood thinners, statins, and a new antibiotic and have a complex conversation about how their lifestyle and diet are going to impact that specific drug cocktail.
Precisely. The technology is essentially forcing the profession to elevate. AI can't easily replicate the high-value medication management and clinical interventions that these hospital pharmacists are doing.
No, it really can't.
But to be that kind of clinical advisor, though, to be the person the doctor relies on for complex medication management, you need an incredibly rigorous education. We haven't explicitly mentioned it yet, but these students aren't just getting a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
They're earning a PharmD, a doctor of pharmacy. It is a highly demanding medical doctorate. And that brings us to the massive elephant in the room here, the cost.
It is the single biggest barrier, without a doubt. The University of Washington study identified tuition as the #1 factor negatively influencing a student's decision to study pharmacy today. The financial barrier to entry has absolutely skyrocketed.
Oh, yeah.
According to their data, the average student debt for a PharmD graduate ballooned to $168,000 in 2023. Just a decade prior, in 2013, it was around $134,000.
$168,000 in debt. That is just a staggering financial weight to carry into your late 20s or early 30s. I mean, it completely explains why the application numbers dropped by 64%. People are just doing the math.
They are doing the math, and for a lot of them, the traditional return on investment didn't seem to justify the debt, especially if they thought they were going to end up burned out at a retail chain.
But here is where it gets really interesting, though, because the Becker's data presents a wild economic contradiction regarding salaries. We just spent the first half of this deep dive talking about how terrible the retail pharmacy jobs are, how everyone is leaving, and how the stores are closing.
Right, the retail sector is contracting aggressively.
But because of that exact dynamic, retail pharmacists actually saw the highest salary growth recently.
Yes.
Between May 2024 and May 2025, retail pharmacists' salaries increased by 3.2%. That actually beat the Consumer Price Index inflation rate of 2.4%.
Which is pretty rare right now.
Exactly. Meanwhile, the hospital pharmacists, the ones with the highly desirable clinical jobs we were just praising, they only saw a 2.2% increase. And pharmacists working in physician offices saw a completely stagnant 0.2% bump.
It is a perfect real-world lesson in supply and demand economics, coupled with legal mandates. Think about the mechanics of a retail pharmacy. By law, a pharmacy cannot open its gates and dispense medication without a licensed pharmacist physically present on the premises.
Right.
If the pharmacist doesn't show up, the pharmacy stays closed, which means the store loses not only prescription revenue, but often the foot traffic for all their front-end retail sales as well.
So if no one wants to work in retail because of that 51% burnout rate, those remaining retail chains are essentially backed into a corner. They desperately need bodies behind the counter just to legally operate.
Exactly. With a dwindling supply of new graduates willing to take those punishing retail jobs, the chains are forced to aggressively raise wages to attract whoever is left. It is essentially hazard pay at this point. The job hasn't gotten better. It has gotten so demanding that they literally have to bribe people to stay.
And it seems to be working to some degree because the average retail salary hit over $140,000. Though we should note that, according to Becker's, pharmacists in physician offices still earn the absolute most on average, sitting at around $167,000.
But nominal salary, the flat number you see on your paycheck, is only half of the financial calculus. If you, as a prospective student, are trying to figure out how to pay off $158,000 in student debt, you have to navigate what we can call the geography trap.
Yes, this was the most eye-opening part of the Becker's report for me. The cost of living adjusted salaries. Because the difference between what you earn on paper and what you can actually buy is massive.
It's huge.
Let's look at California. On paper, the nominal average salary for a pharmacist in California is a massive $162,340. Your immediate instinct is, I need to move to California to pay off my loans.
But you cannot ignore the cost of living index, which in California sits at a punishing 142.3. When you take that hourly wage and adjust it for what housing, groceries, and transportation actually cost in that state, That high California salary translates to only $54.85 an hour in real purchasing power.
Wow.
Yeah, it suddenly drops well below the national picture.
The purchasing power just evaporates. And the absolute worst trap is Hawaii. The nominal pay looks great at over $153,000, but Hawaii's cost of living index is 185, almost double the national average.
Right.
So when you adjust for that, the real dollar pay comes in dead last in the country at just $39.82 an hour. You are managing high-level clinical interventions or running a massive retail operation, and in real economic terms, you're making less than $40 an hour.
Which brings us to the real winners of this geographic arbitrage. Take Minnesota. They offer a very strong high nominal wage of over $147,000, but they pair it with a much more reasonable cost of living index of 94.6, which is actually below the national baseline.
That's a great combo.
It is. So when you adjust for the cost of living, a pharmacist in Minnesota is making $74.74 an hour. That is the highest real purchasing power in the entire country.
So the takeaway here for you, if you are analyzing this career, is crystal clear. The return on investment for a doctor of pharmacy degree is almost entirely dependent on where you choose to live and practice.
100%.
If you take your $168,000 in debt to Hawaii or California, you are going to be financially stressed for decades. But if you take that exact same degree to Minnesota or Indiana and Iowa, which the data also shows ranking really high in adjusted pay, you're instantly in a remarkably strong financial position.
It requires highly strategic career planning. But beyond just geography, there is another massive structural advantage for anyone looking at this field right now. We really have to talk about the leverage that this applicant shortage has created.
Because the pendulum has completely swung back in favor of the student. We mentioned that 64% drop in applications earlier. The consequence of that is that the National Center for Health Workforce Analysis is now officially projecting a shortage of 4,980 pharmacists by the year 2036.
It is a remarkable reversal.
Yeah.
I mean, a decade ago, the entire profession was panicking about a looming surplus of pharmacists because schools had just expanded way too fast.
Yeah.
Now they are staring down a severe deficit.
And the UW study noted a truly wild statistic. In 2019, an estimated 83% of pharmacy schools in the U.S. couldn't even fill their available seats for the entering class.
83%.
Imagine running a highly specialized doctorate program with massive fixed costs. You have tenured professors, specialized labs, administrative overhead, and 83% of your peers are staring at empty desks. They must be bleeding money. So how is the educational industry trying to win you, the prospective learner, back?
Well, they are getting increasingly desperate, and because of that, they are completely abandoning the old recruitment playbook. The UW study showed that traditional career fairs and glossy pamphlets simply do not work on this generation of students.
Makes sense.
Yeah, 80% of decided students said career fairs didn't influence their choice at all. So universities are being forced to try radical new financial incentives.
Like what are they actually offering to get bodies in seats?
To tackle that massive tuition barrier we discussed, some schools are taking huge financial hits just to get students in the door. The University of Utah, for example, launched a first-year free program in 2023. They literally cover the entire first full year of tuition for every accepted student.
Wow, they are just erasing a whole year of doctorate-level tuition.
Yep.
That is a massive loss leader for a university, but I guess it shows just how badly they need to keep their enrollment numbers viable.
Exactly. Other institutions are exploring heavy tuition discounting and need-based scholarships that didn't even exist a few years ago. And they are completely shifting their recruitment strategy to focus on personal connections.
How so?
The UW data clearly shows that students are most influenced by talking directly to practicing pharmacists or having family members in the profession. So schools like the University of Georgia have launched alumni ambassador programs, sending real, practicing clinical pharmacists out to talk to prospects about what the job actually looks like now.
That's smart.
They're even hosting pharmacy summer camps and RBEX games for high schoolers to build that pipeline early.
They are trying to catch them before the doom and gloom retail headlines scare them away. Because underneath all the noise, the UW study shows that the core reasons people do still choose to pursue a PharmD haven't really changed.
No, the foundational motivators remain incredibly strong. Among the students who had committed to applying, 92% said they were positively influenced by the prestige of earning a doctorate degree. It is still a highly respected medical credential.
And despite the retail turbulence, the broader stability of healthcare is still a major draw, right?
Absolutely. Job security, strong overall salaries, and job availability were cited as massive factors. But perhaps most importantly, and I think this speaks volumes about the type of person drawn to this field, 100% of the decided students in the survey said the ability to improve people's health and well-being positively influenced their decision. They genuinely want to make a clinical impact.
Which perfectly aligns with the structural pivot we've been tracking today. The jobs are moving away from the isolated cash register and directly into the hospital clinics, where these pharmacists can actually make those direct, life-saving clinical interventions.
It really is a beautiful alignment. The evolution of the industry is actually matching the core motivations of the incoming students far better than the traditional retail model ever did.
So, to synthesize everything we've unpacked in this deep dive,
Yeah.
if you just look at the surface, the highly visible traditional neighborhood pharmacist job is fading away, and it's dragging the application numbers down with it.
Right.
But if you look under the hood, a highly paid, deeply integrated clinical role is booming in its place.
And it reminds us that the value of any degree is tied to leverage. The landscape is shifting, but right now, because of that 64% drop in applications, prospective PharmD students have unprecedented leverage.
They really do.
Seats are empty, a massive workforce shortage is looming by 2036, and universities are desperate. You have the power to demand significantly better tuition deals from schools, and once you graduate, higher starting salaries from employers. The ball is entirely in the applicant's court.
It is a phenomenal buyer's market for pharmacy education right now. But
Yeah.
as we wrap up, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over. We talked about how agentic AI and advanced robotics are going to completely automate the mechanical act of dispensing medication. It is very likely that the pharmacist of 2036 will never actually touch a pill bottle. Instead, their entire day will be spent acting purely as specialized medical consultants, analyzing continuous health data and managing complex drug interactions.
That's the future.
Will this total structural shift, moving from what the public often viewed as an overqualified retail clerk to an elite, highly specialized medical advisor, actually make the Doctor of Pharmacy degree more prestigious and valuable 10 years from now than it ever was in the past? Just like the physical storefronts of Blockbuster Video faded away to make room for a much more advanced streaming industry, maybe the death of the corner drugstore is exactly what the pharmacy profession needed to finally unlock its true clinical value. Thank you for sharing these incredible sources with us and fueling another great deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we'll catch you next time.